Right.
And then just keep an eye on your chat. I'll put your time cue there.
All right. Herb Stratford, KMSB, KOLD, Tucson. Hey, guys.
Hi
Hey,
there.
Brian, James.
Nice to meet you guys. All right. So let me just start. Were you guys bowlers? I mean, was this like a world you were remotely familiar with?
I grew up bowling, so I was in bowling leagues like through elementary school, junior high, and then every Thursday for my family was bowling night. So it was kind of a thing within my life.
I grew up in the Midwest. Bowling was the quintessential birthday event. No matter how old you were, all the way through high school, it happened. So my experience looking at professional bowling was I thought I was a professional when I was bowling, had no idea how far away I really was from that until most recently when we got to make this and meet the pros that are out there and just, taking it to a whole other level.
Well, I'm also a Midwestern boy, and I exactly hear you. I all of my birthday parties were at the bowling alley, so you're totally spot on about that. Did you have such, this world has such fascinating characters. I mean, obviously you're following the leaders on the tour, but did it sort of come into focus the more time you sort of spent with those guys, like, oh yeah, these are the guys.
It was a kind of a multi-year process to figure out which were going to be the main guys to follow. And ultimately, and there was a lot of other people, a lot of other producers, people came on very early, chasing certain aspects of this story. And so by the time we came in, it was pretty clear cut. Like, okay, it was obvious that these were the top four that bowlers that we wanted to focus on. And then in terms of a rookie, someone like Cameron Crowe was just such a standout. I mean, he's the most charismatic character that you can imagine. And coming into it, like we wanted to see it from that point of view. And we couldn't have asked for a better five bowlers to follow.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the heart and soul. But the other thing that sort of struck me is, a couple of these guys, they became who they are because they grew up in a bowling alley, right? And so, that's like if, it's sort of like it was baked into their DNA. And I think that's interesting because I don't know how many other sports would be sort of, in that position to sort of groom people, for lack of a better term. Did that seem like, I mean, are there other people that you're aware of on the tour that sort of had those similar paths of finding their way to the sport?
Yes, the show follows five bowlers, but there are hundreds of bowlers that are at the professional level. And all of them, well, not all, a lot of them have very similar stories, whether, like EJ Tackett and Jason Belmonte, their parents actually owned bowling centers, or you have someone like Kyle Troup, whose father was a Hall of Fame bowler, and so he was raised in that world. And even Anthony Simonson, who he was raised in a way where like his mom would go to work right next door to a bowling center and he would just go over there and hang out there all day. So having that exposure early on is really really big, and we did see a lot of that with a lot of the other bowlers. I mean, in a certain sense, bowling is great because it is something that doesn't change whether you do it alone or with people, other than you don't have people to share pizza and fries with and high five when you get a strike. But it can be a solitary thing that you can get good at just by doing on your own.
And from any age. Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing I think that's so interesting is, and I'm sure you're aware of this, the bowling lounge sort of pre-COVID was sort of it was becoming hip again, right? To sort of go bowling, where I feel like for a while it was sort of just, it sort of fell off and it was just the leagues and it wasn't sort of the common, as sort of for egalitarian as it is now. Do you think that this will help sort of restart interest in sort of the league and sort of that professional side of the sport?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And honestly, like if something like that happens, what a fascinating byproduct of making something that is so relatable that taps into the pop culture of where we are currently and excites enough people to get out there and bowl. Uh, so yes, if that happens, that would be pretty extraordinary. Obviously, the entire bowling community would probably like be overjoyed. And for us, like, we love this world. We feel so grateful that we got to spend these 5 episodes highlighting some of the not only the bowlers that we follow, but just the community behind professional bowling. And if there's more to explore, I mean, there is still so much more to explore. And so would it open up other avenues for us to explore further? Maybe. But ultimately, like, people should just watch this and revel in the fact that there is a sport that brings so much joy to so many people, and to see it at a professional level is
Mm.
it's edge. It can be at times, not all the time, but it can be at times an edge of your seat experience. And we wanted to suck people into that world, let you really connect and understand the difficulty these bowlers are facing with the oil patterns on the lanes and the challenges that they face and the grind of the tour, but then to really connect with them. So when you see, as the series progresses, a couple of our bowlers go head to head, like it's nail biting. And it really should feel that way. It was for us being there, and we've had like people react in similar ways that have seen some of the later episodes, and that's so encouraging to us. And so we hope everyone gets to watch it, and then yeah, go support local events that are happening in your neighborhood bowling alley.
Well, and I want to ask you too. I'm glad you mentioned the oil side of oiling the lane and the oil patterns. I've been a lifelong bowler. I had no idea, absolutely no idea that that was a thing. And was that something that you guys were aware of it, or was that something also that sort of came out during the process?
It's something that we were somewhat aware of, in the same sense of you just see a huge sign that says "Do not step over the line, slick surface." So I knew something was going on down there,
Yeah.
but didn't fully understand the full impact of what oil patterns mean to professional bowling. But it is just such an interesting part of the game, like having an obstacle you can't see. And so you're doing everything based on feel. And then every time a ball goes down the lane, it's changing that obstacle. So you are always in guess mode and you're trying to hit an area that's a few centimeters wide every single time in a way that's changing every time you do it. So that to us, we really need people to understand that right away because as most people probably do, when they hear about professional bowling, they're like, "Oh, why don't they just get strikes every time?" It's like, because it's really hard. They're making it harder.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that was so interesting to me was you get this sense of an athlete and their dedication and their persistence and their rehearsal and their practice and all that stuff, but it all goes out the window. And I think that's what's so fascinating. And I just think you guys have opened a fascinating door to a world. And honestly, when it was over, I wanted more. So I hope there's some more for you guys. I know this was probably a big project, but congratulations on really cracking the door open. And I feel, before this, it was all Kingpin to me. That's how I thought Hollywood was going to always represent bowling. So congratulations.
It means a lot.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
All
Appreciate
right.
that.
Thanks, guys.